High five. The internet's
High five.
They say monsters don't exist. But what if I told you they walk among us in plain sight? Imagine the chill creeping down your spine when the unsettling sensation of eyes boring into you from the shadows. Yet, when you turn, nobody is there. Picture yourself in a crowded grocery store, heart racing, as an inexplicable dread clings to you like a dark, dark cloud. Monsters are real. This is American Whiskey, and every Friday we get together for Sip and Solve, where we dive into the bone-chilling tales that remind us of darkness lurks just beneath the surface. All right, guys, welcome back to American Whiskey, Sip and Solve. I'm your host, Big Sturg, and with me, as always, we've got Justice League.
It almost wasn't tonight, but I'm glad to be here.
But he's here. Now, our third seat's not occupied because he's working right now, and he'll be here every Tuesday and whenever he can. We love Phil. He's not gone anywhere, so don't worry. He's a great guy. But what I want to do...
I was hoping you'd bring this up.
I want to enter. Yeah, me too, man. I've been looking forward to it. Been nervous wreck all week because I didn't know what she would say. It's like, will you marry me? But it's more than that. So tonight we just asked MyKala to head up our Sip and Solve every Friday. Most Fridays, like next Friday, we may not be able to do it, or we'll have to do it later. But she's going to be heading up our Sip and Solve. So MyKala, we want to, welcome you to the team. We're super excited. And what's up, girl?
Not much, dog. Just got this super cool opportunity to have opinions about people who do degenerate shit, which is basically every day of my life. So, hell yeah, it's a Friday.
Yeah, you know what?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you so much for offering. Like, I am really excited. I have thoroughly enjoyed every time I've been on the podcast with you guys. So, to have something that is also like close to my heart and hang out with you guys. Fuck yeah, dude.
Oh, fuck yeah, let's do it.
Mama's is obviously down.
And the cat's with us.
Yeah,
so,
and Lady Meowington also agrees. She would like merch in her size.
don't play games.
I'll make it happen.
I will subject my cat to it, and I also blame you for the amount of bleeding that will happen after it happens.
Cats with hats.
Yeah, cats with hats, baby. And dresses. Is it a girl?
Yeah, this is Mama's. The other one that looks like her but is slightly more gingy is Krieg.
Okay. So listen, guys, grab your favorite whiskey, moonshine, beer, wine. And speaking of wine, shall we play our commercial for Burned Out Winery?
I think we should.
I think so. And if you see in the front here, we got some other stuff up front.
Hell yeah.
If you're looking for a unique wine experience, check out Burned Out Winery. Founded by a team of siblings who turned their passion for winemaking into a thriving business. They focus on crafting exceptional small batch wines from Moscato to tart cherry and spiced apple to their delightful sangrias. There's something for everyone. Each bottle tells a story, complete with a creative name that reflects their journey. Their wines are not only fantastic, but they're also affordable, making them a great choice for any occasion. You can easily order online at burnedoutwinery.com or connect with them on Facebook. They deliver. Whether you're local or out of state, they'll ship right to your front door. Support this hardworking team and savor the taste of Burned Out Winery. This is Big Sturg with American Whiskey. All right, guys. So MyKala just disappeared for a second, but she'll be back on. But guys, we're super happy to get you on here. MyKala's back. Yes, she's back. She's back. Listen, grab that whiskey, grab the wine, settle in. Join us as we delve deep into one of the most, I would say, chilling, perplexing cases in American criminal history.
Yeah.
Hillside Strangler.
Well, Sturge, right before we do that, I want to bring up two things. One, she disappeared like she was murdered. And then came back with the lights dimmed.
So dim.
She did, bro.
I did that on purpose.
It was totally on purpose and definitely not because I accidentally, when trying to switch to a tab, hit the X instead of the tab next to it. That is definitely not what happened.
That shit loaded quick.
And then number two, what are you guys sipping on?
Good point here. We've also got Casbah. Brother, he just started tuning into our podcast on YouTube. I wanted to shout him out. Is there any way we could break that down so I say it right? I don't want to be an asshole. I'd love to send you a shirt or something.
I'm guessing it's like Casbah.
Casbah. If you could
rock the Casbah.
Get on Facebook and find us, and we'd love to send you a shirt, bro. I'm really appreciative that you will listen. And Gordon Shinerman also has a Twitch now.
I saw that.
Of course.
Nice.
So I'm sipping on Ghost and Coke.
You can't go wrong with Ghost.
I know that's Lake Erie Distillery. If you've never, had it, get it. I was reading that.
Like rock the Casbah.
Casbah. All right, that's awesome.
That's funny.
What are you sipping on?
So I'm drinking good old Natty Daddy.
Not a Natty Daddy, Natty Light.
Oh, Natty Light. My bad.
Shit, we didn't low.
Some Buffalo Trace Barrel Select.
I took that whole thing as a shot, and it was horrible.
I can't shoot this. It's good.
It's so good, but I took it way too fast.
You're like ham.
I was like, shit, that's not a shot.
That's why we actually started late. We had to stop coughing.
That's right.
No, we started late because we said we were Rigsby time.
That's true.
True.
MyKala, what are you sipping on?
I am sipping on the... Oh, that's not going to happen. I'm sipping on gin. Gin and ice. It's a...
That's not going to happen.
I was trying to give a shout out to the label, but
there it is.
There we go. Gin number 1. So we do a savory kind of garden style gin. We actually adapted one of our gin stills to be able to pull some of the deeper oils out of the juniper and the citrus peel. So it comes out kind of like this greenish tone. And it tastes almost like a dirty martini right out of the bottle.
It's like a lot of people don't like gin, but I love it because it's It's got like the floral smell, and I'm a big smell guy. So if it smells good, I feel like
it's gonna taste good.
I feel like gin has a different but good finish.
It does.
Yeah.
One, you can drink it dry or neat. You can drink it on the rocks, mixed with some Coke. It doesn't matter. So.
I'm coming into Ohio with a bandolier full of minis to let you try everything that we make at my work.
Sure. So guys, we're going to dive in here. We're going to, set the scene for you. We're going to dive into this Hillside Strangler. And to understand the Hillside Strangler case, we have to set the scene. I do this every sip and solve. The late 1970s in Los Angeles. It was a time of, significant social change. The city was, grappling with the rising crime rate. The, atmosphere was electric. And, with the culture at the time, you got to think disco. You got to think civil rights movement. You have to think awareness of women's issues. I think this was a big thing. And we have to, set that scene so how, this crime goes. But beneath the surface of this, culture in Los Angeles, darkness was brewing.
Mhm.
And between 1977, 1978, a series of brutal murders swept through the Los Angeles area, leaving the community in fear. And the police were scrambling for answers. The victims, I think they were mostly young women, and they were often targeted because they were, very vulnerable, which, it could have been due to the circumstances. I think we were talking earlier, it was because of circumstances such as
Yeah.
being runaways or working in the streets.
So we'll get more into detail on that. Like everyone else that we have covered, it seemed to progress and they seem to get more comfortable and
Mhm.
progress throughout their killings. They started with people like that and moved on to middle class people,
Yeah.
women to say.
Well, and we also kinda talked last week about that, like, serial killer spiral, where
Yes.
once they have that, like, first kill, that initial, like, rush of endorphins of, like, "Oh, holy shit, I just extinguished a life, I would like to chase that dragon." These guys, like, went so fast, so
Yep,
soon after the first one, and the first
yep.
one wasn't even, like we talked about Dahmer being, like, a compulsionary serial killer. This was just, like, an opportunistic rage killing, and then they were like, "Yes, I'll have more of that, please."
Yeah, they were an odd crew. I think they hit so quick and so unexpected. But let's take a moment to, before we get into this, let's honor the victims, and that's what it's all about. The first known victim was 19-year-old Yolanda Washington, whose body was actually discovered in 1977. She was a vibrant young woman with dreams of a better life, and her tragic end really marked the beginning of a terrifying wave of violence.
So, Yolanda was kind of a victim of circumstance in the wrong place at the wrong time. So, she was a 19-year-old prostitute. She had accompanied a fellow sex worker to meet with these 2 pimps who were looking to expand their kind of, I guess, reign of influence. They had found, and this is how you know that these are some degenerate motherfuckers, but they would rather have clients who contact them and come to them because that means that they could keep their sex workers locked up in rooms and just have the Johns visit them where they were rather than having them work the street. They're like, there's less outside influence, there's less chance of them escaping. They had just had 2 of their underage sex slaves escape, so they were looking to expand their business into known Johns. And so they approached this woman, not Yolanda, but her like kind of mentor higher up, approached this woman about getting a list of Johns that they could contact and have as regular clients. And so Yolanda accompanied this woman to that meeting. She handed over the list, she got the money, and then the 2 pimps realized that the list was fake. None of the names were correct. None of the numbers were real. And so they were infuriated.
Mhm.
But the woman took the money, skipped town. I believe her name is Debbie. But she took the money, skipped town, and all they could find was poor 19-year-old Yolanda, who had the misfortune of being there that night.
Yeah. And it's really, you look at that whole story of her, and it's horrid. It's horrible. There's other victims,
Mhm.
and we can go on and on. It includes women like 15-year-old Anita Gay, who was reported missing and later found dead. Each of the women had stories, families,
Mhm.
aspirations, right?
Yeah.
That, their lives were tragically cut short. We talk every week about this. We talk every week about these innocent people that their lives are just cut short. And it's crucial that we remember them as individuals
Mhm.
rather than just a
10
statistic.
victims, 12 victims,
Well,
like,
That's right.
they're not a number.
so that's also it leads to show that they weren't dumb. So
Mhm.
they actually abducted a woman called Catherine Lore Baker. She's
Yes.
the daughter
Daughter
of
of
Baker.
Peter Lorre? Yeah.
Yes. and they let her go because she was like, "Hey, look at my ID, look at who I am, look at this picture with my father." And they
She
were
brought the receipts.
and they
Yes.
were like, "Oh shit, if we kill her, it's gonna attract a lot of attention."
Mhm.
Well, cowards, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
ultimately, like, intelligent, narcissistic cowards.
and, as we're sipping on these drinks tonight and we're gonna get let's take a sip to the victims. Let's cheer these victims. Let's think about them and reflect on their lives and the impact of their loss on their families and the
Cheers.
community. So, man, that buffalo is good, bro.
It's definitely a sipper.
So we're gonna, I when I started sipping Solve, man, this was the biggest thing is just remembering them, and not as a
Mhm.
number, but man, it's these are touchy, right? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah. And
we're not
especially
trying to
the
glorify these guys.
no. Well, and I appreciate that's part of why we start with the victims first. Like, we're not setting the stage because honestly, like, Dahmer's history of, like, abuse and neglect and all of the things that contributed to him having a shitty childhood, these guys had some strife in their early years, but nothing that would contribute to them being the degenerate
I
pieces
don't
of
think
shit that
there's
they
no red
showed themselves
flags,
to
right,
be.
MyKala? There's no
No,
red flag.
like upper middle class, like,
Yeah,
relatively successful, they just, like, came out of the womb pieces of shit, like,
yeah,
perpetual liars, like,
yeah,
all
right.
of this stuff.
Yeah, they
Uh,
just out of the
yeah,
womb, pieces of shit, you know
just
what I mean?
fucking Katie Couric turd.
Yeah, I
South
mean,
Park reference, not Katie Couric is a person, just to be clear. I
it's
don't care.
I get it, yes, absolutely, but now do you wanna talk more about these victims, MyKala? Do you have anyone you wanna
Yeah,
add that? Yeah, go ahead, hit the victims because then I'm gonna dive into the investigation.
yes. So, I just wanna reiterate again, like, the time between each murder, like, usually it's kind of like a slow exponential growth, but after this first taste of, like, murder and kind of, like, removal of control from their victim, they had no empathy. Like, one of the things sometimes about, like, psychopathic or sociopathic people is once they experience a thrill from something they know is not okay, there'll be, like, a moment of, like, self-reflection or, like, of almost hiding, and I feel like that's more indicative of, like, a compulsory serial killer or murder. They don't understand necessarily why they did what they did, they just really felt like they needed to do it.
Yeah,
Whereas these asshats were like, "We can't get to the woman who took our money, so we're gonna kill you because you were there."
yeah,
And then they were like, "Hey, actually, that was kinda cool. What if we kept doing that?" And one of the worst things is they kept elevating the level of torture that they brought to their victims, which will soon become clear as we move through it. But so Yolanda Washington was murdered on October 18th of 1977. On November 1st, so not even a full month, like 2-ish weeks later. So on November 1st, 1977, police were called to a neighborhood in La Crescenta, approximately 12 miles north of downtown Los Angeles. The body of a teenage girl was found naked, face up, on a parkway in a middle class residential area. The person who initially discovered her body actually covered it with a tarp because she discovered it before all of the children in the neighborhood were going to start
yep,
getting onto the bus to go to school. But they found ligature marks on her neck, wrists, and ankles. This kind of like 5 point restraining, I guess, like, these ligature marks were found consistently throughout all of their murders,
yep.
but,
There was an MO there, right? It was
yeah,
Yeah.
like, they want to fully remove control
yep,
and just have their victims at their full mercy, and it was also clear that the body had been dumped, so she had been killed elsewhere. They found some kind of, like, fibrous evidence at the scene of the crime, but forensic, I guess, pathology at that time, like, even if you found semen or blood, there wasn't like DNA analysis. They could only match blood types.
I mean, you got
So
the technology then is nothing
nothing.
close to where we're at today.
Well, and that's part of why it's so important for the chain of custody of like biological samples, because now that we have the technology, as long as samples that were collected in yesteryear are preserved and deemed to be like unaffected or like unsullied, they can rerun those specimens
I think
and
we
like
see that often, right? I mean, we're
Mhm.
seeing crimes. We have a local crime that one of our first sip and salts we did.
I was about to bring that up, but I'm glad you did.
Patty Atkins out of Marysville, Ohio. There's, fibers that they're holding on to. That was in 2002.
Yeah, I think they said they only have enough to run one test.
It was a
So they're
very
holding-
very small amount of blood, but that just shows you they knew that technology was growing,
Mhm.
But they didn't have it then. Sorry to interrupt you.
Oh, no, that I appreciate that, and I didn't know about specific examples, so
Yeah.
we're figuring it out. I like to talk, so please get a word in
Keep
edgewise.
rolling.
Otherwise, it's just a fucking
Keep rolling,
McTED
man.
talk.
No.
So Kayla, did you have more on Yolanda, or were you
No.
resting? So
Yeah, Yolanda was, like, a victim of circumstance and also just kind of, like, the
Crime of
catalyst
opportunity.
for the debauchery that ensued afterwards.
Yep. She was crime of opportunity.
So I'm not trying to jump too far ahead where you're at, but there's something you said which makes me want to jump to these two.
Ooh, yeah, go for it.
You said that she covered them up with a tarp so kids wouldn't see.
Mhm.
These two did not care so much that on November 13th of 1977, they actually kidnapped a 12-year-old girl named Dolores Cepeda and a 14-year-old Sonia Johnson.
Same time?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they were friends because they got on the same bus.
That's super rare.
And just to be clear, Dolores was 12.
Yes,
And
Dolores
Sonia was 14.
and Sonia was 14. But it goes to show that they didn't really plan this kind of stuff because they were dumped very close proximity to Dodger Stadium, which is a hot spot.
Right.
And they were found by a 9-year-old kid.
Mm.
So not only did you end two very young adults' lives, but that 9-year-old will never be the same.
Oh, absolutely not.
That's crazy.
Ugh.
And typically, like, kidnappings do not happen in pairs.
No. And that's kind of what, like, we referred to this as, like, the Hillside Strangler case, because that's kind of what, when the media and the police actually finally started paying attention, which I think was after, like, the first 5 fucking murders, which also asterisk, when normie people and middle-class suburban students and women were being murdered, now you suddenly think that maybe these are all related, but when they're just sex workers or like underage runaways, like, it's like, well, they were just out in the fucking wilderness. So yeah, I guess sometimes they just die. And it happens so quickly, like pew, 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 pew.
Well, that's what I was about to say, because the first one happened in, you said November 1st time frame?
The first one was like October 18th. Then
a month later.
No,
and then like November 1st
2 weeks
was
yeah.
the second one. Yeah.
Yolanda was October.
Yeah.
Judith was November 1st.
Yep.
Lisa was November 6th.
Yeah,
They aborted
5 days
one
later.
early November, and then they kidnapped these two on November 13th.
Yeah. Like, the spiral is actually just tobogganing like a death sled down the fucking hill.
Cosmo, you got to keep paying attention. Were they brothers? Hey, listen.
We're going to get there.
We'll get there.
Now,
we're talking about the people we care about.
Yeah,
but they are related. I will say they are related.
But we want to just make sure we talk about the victims because they deserve to be talked about. Now, what's the next victim?
Do you have another one? Well,
yes. Well, let me just make sure there's no contextual evidence that I saw for Judith. Ooh. So one of the things, like, the two-toned sedan has kind of, like, it's become a recurring theme. Like, there were witnesses who saw the victims, like, interacting with two men, and it came out later that they oftentimes impersonated police officers.
Yes.
Well, the one wanted to be
And
a cop.
what's that?
The one cousin wanted to be a cop.
Yeah, one wanted to be a cop, so they, like, just kind of adopted this persona of, like, "Yeah, we're undercover cops, so, like, you're getting pulled at like, you're a
Unfortunately,
prostitute, you
some
better come
people
with
trust
us."
the cops the most, right?
Well, so that was brought to light the most by Catherine Baker that actually got away
Mhm.
or let go.
Yeah,
She recalled the two as flashing LA police badges and approached her.
yeah. But so Judith Miller was the first time where a witness had witnessed a witness had done their thing. Brap, brap, brap. I've had gin. But a witness had, like, seen them interacting with the victim and the car that they were driving, which this is I mean, I know it was the 70s, like, things have gotten better. There's obviously a bit more of an awareness of the depths of human depravity, but, like, the nonchalance with which the police kind of handled this case and the witnesses is rough to look at in retrospect.
Yeah, I agree. 100%.
Like, it's tough to be and I know, like, hindsight's 2020, we can see this, like, we've all seen the movies where, like, "That motherfucker is a killer right there," but, like, we're not in that moment, so we can't really fully understand what it would be to be a police officer who's trying to put together this whirlwind of bodies that just
Yeah.
keep popping up. Like, I imagine some flight or fight response adrenaline was pumping through, but,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
did you care before or, like, now you're having to, like, retroactively care about the women who were killed before?
Yeah, and, you know, I think you guys wanna dive into the investigation?
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we can kinda intersperse, like,
let's do it, yeah, let's do it.
investigation. Yeah, fuck yeah.
Because I think, you know, I wanna dive into the investigation a little bit because, you know, the first bodies were discovered in what, Hollywood Hills, right? Which is often, you know, in a remote area,
Mhm.
you know, they were odd guys, you know, which is how serial killers get that, you know, chilly moniker, right? You know, the
Yeah.
Hillside Strangler
Mm,
was those remote areas. And initially, the police were pretty much at a loss. There really was a lack of, which we talked about, that lack of forensic technology made it really challenging to connect the dots. The
yeah.
victims, they had been sexually assaulted, they had been strangled, they, then dumped, leaving law enforcement with really no leads. And media coverage really intensified as the bodies kept piling up,
Mm,
creating a panic, in the community. News outlets, ran sensational stories, and the women
mhm.
began to modify their behavior to avoid becoming those victims. I think that's something to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and at this time, like, Los Angeles had several active serial killers too. Like, they weren't even the only ones operating in this time. But touching on the sensationalist, like Son of Sam, Night Stalker, like all of these serial killers got like pew, 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 their
Yeah,
name in headlights, and it just served to make the general populace so intrinsically afraid of interacting with other people where it almost did, I think, the general normies almost a disservice where it's like I can't trust anyone because any one of you might be the one who's gonna fucking murder me.
But
right.
Whereas I think that if we had like a greater trust in our actual community, I think there could have been an opportunity to circumvent some of these like atrocities.
I
so
agree.
you have to also put into consideration with exactly what you just said. With there being multiple serial killers in the same region,
Mhm. Yeah.
makes the police job so much harder.
So much harder. Like, which one
Because
is it? Let me spin the wheel of misfortune and figure out which silly serial killer is fucking up my day today.
well, it makes you wonder, like, do you link one to another? Do you get them mixed up? There's so
Mhm.
much going on there that it makes solving one
Yeah.
compared to 3 impossible.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting comment here by Casaba.
Oh, mhm.
He was a
Rock the
sheriff in
Casbah.
Miami. Yeah, sorry. I'm terrible at names. I really apologize, but he was a sheriff in Miami, studied psychology, and has worked on many crime shows. I don't know this case, but I see one wanted to be a cop, and two, which is rejected police, want to be main killer and other. I think that's a really good fucking point.
Well, and then Gordon Shinerman also touches on something that kind of comes up later in the investigation when the police finally acknowledged that this was a serial killer situation and these murders were all linked. The profile that they gave was essentially like a white man who hates his mom.
Yes.
And it ended up being two Italian descendant men who just hate women.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In general. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think, you know, back to the investigation kind of the media coverage and all that, but the authorities kind of formed that task force. But the investigation was really complicated by the fact that they were dealing with not just the one, right? We're talking about it right now. Not just the one, but potentially two killers. And, you know, he just put again here, did you put that was following the older, bigger brother, which, you know, I think they were cousins, right? But they were close enough to
It's
go
like the master and apprentice kind of a thing.
Exactly. And, you know, he just said, is this retaliation against mom and dad?
So
maybe dad remarried stepbrother, you know.
Bianchi was the adoptive nephew. He was 26 and Angelo was 43.
I really appreciate our guy commenting here.
So it was uncle and adoptive nephew.
But I think, you know, you look at this, guys, right? It is the same feel. I completely agree, bro. Like
family's family.
Know, this is my brother, right? And we're not even related in the at all, you know. And thankful I'm better looking, but whatever. But you know, but when you start looking into these killers, I think most of the time it's just one person. So when they start realizing that there's the potential of two, but let's reveal the killers. Let's talk about the killers.
I was going to say, I just Googled real quick because we talked about how many killers were active in California. So in the 70s and 80s, more than 20 serial killers were active in Los Angeles.
There's an average of about 30 right now in the United States.
The number in the US was the highest between 70 and 90.
That makes it impossible for police.
Absolutely. Like, I think that's one thing that when I'm kind of digesting specific case analysis from other content creators, one thing that they touch on is like, how could the police, like, and I even said it, like, how could the police not have known this?
Yeah.
But then when you think about the sheer depth of like the shit that they were dealing with on the daily, like I abscond my fucking previous comment. I did not know 20 people killing people that you have to figure out why, but seems at random.
And they were probably trying to take all those together.
Totally. Like, and how do you connect the ones that are this specific thing?
Yeah.
With no forensic technology.
Well, I
with
think
like semen and blood is like just blood type.
Let's go into the killer's mind.
Yeah.
It's an art for them. It's a thrill. So if a lot of the killers want to leave their trademark at the crime scene, right? They want to make sure when the cop sees it, they fucking know it's me again, right? So and they separate themselves because you got to understand, people got to realize this isn't just a kill, right? They're just not murdering somebody. This is
not like hunting for necessity.
No,
right.
this is an art for them. It's
their skydiving.
I mean, honestly, it's crazy, but you know, you guys want to hit anything else there, or you guys want to talk about who these guys are?
Well, do we want to keep going through victim timeline, or we can
let's do victim timelines. Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Our guy.
I was like, it would.
I mean, wanting to talk about the killers, but you know,
I know.
All
right. Sorry, this is my podcast now. Once the door is open, I'm taking charge. Me and my Birkenstock.
Real quick.
Damn. Yeah, hit it, girl. You got it.
So, Yolanda Washington, October 18th, Judith Miller, November 1st. 5 days later, November 6th, Lisa Caston. She was discovered near a country club in Glendale, and much like Miller, the previous victim, her body bore the same like neck, wrists, ankles, 5-point restraints. She had ligature marks and showed signs of being strangled and brutally raped. This is the theme throughout the thing. We all know what happened to them. I would like to just not have to say that every time, but
Yeah.
all of their victims were brutally raped before they were killed. So let's just establish that as a constant. So one of the difficulties, like she was working in a restaurant, which normally would not be part of the Hillside Stranglers MO, but she also worked part-time as a professional dancer in an all-female dance and cabaret troupe, the LA Knockers, which if you hear that, you're like, knocker. So like it's them moving up to like still sex work adjacent without the lack of like regulation, but they still saw her as someone who was like sinful and like lesser. It's kind of like the Madonna complex of like they weren't exalting her because they knew that she was a sinner. So like they weren't like, "Oh, you're really good, but oh, now I know that you're not." Like they were taking advantage of her being able to find, I guess, like monetary like comfort, like being able to financially provide for herself in whatever way she could.
Right.
It's like being a what is it? There's they're a dance troupe in New York, the Rockettes. So, like, being a Rockette is, like, fucking high praise indeed, but then there are tiers below that where you're still working just as hard as a Rockettes, but you're called the LA Knockers.
Yeah.
The Knockettes, if you will.
The knockout.
And like their other MO with this one, they pulled her over, showed her a badge,
Yeah.
and went that route.
And they're detectives, and they needed to take her in for questioning for being a waitress and a fucking dance troupe member. Like, it's really I appreciate that, at least in this day and age, women have been able to have the information to be more informed about like what is an actual police badge, like here are your rights when being taken in by potentially undercover policemen.
Yeah, but how many people don't know?
Well, and like the
You
information
know?
is there, but it's not disseminated wildly.
We had
Like
somebody
you have to look how to protect yourself, and that
I think,
sucks a lot of
we had somebody here in, I believe Clark County not that long ago was pulling people over in what looked at night in what looked like, a sheriff's car.
yeah.
And, they weren't. They were not sheriffs. It's like, who's not gonna pull over when you see those lights?
Mhm. Yeah, exactly.
Because the second
One
that
time
you
I was
don't, you're gonna get ripped out of your fucking car and who knows what next, right?
totally. I like super like low stakes situation for me, but I was driving from where I was living at the time to another town and I saw lights and sirens behind me, so I pulled over. But the person who was behind me, who was actually getting pulled over, was driving without their lights. And they were getting pulled over on suspicion of drunk driving. So I pulled over because I thought the cops were going to whiz past me, but then they stopped. So then I'm like, fuck, okay, I don't know what I did, but I prepared all my documents and the cop came to my window and he was like, why did you pull over? And I was like, that's not the way this conversation normally goes. Like, I thought you asked, why do you think I pulled you
Yeah,
over? And he
yeah.
was like, no, I pulled over the people behind you and they said that you were with them. And I was like, are there people behind me? Like, I'm not drunk. I'm just trying to go home from work. What the fuck is
Yeah.
happening? And they're like, yeah, no, we pulled them over. You pulled over to, like, did you pull over to let us go by? And I was like, absolutely. And they're like, cool, on your way.
Have a
But I
good
was
one.
just like, Ugh!
Yeah, and it's always not being stereotypical or judgmental, one or both. Was bi or gay, closeted, and in love with the other distant relative. He's investigating. It sounds like he's trying to be the investigator here.
Yeah. I
And
think I think honestly, there's no indication, like, so getting into the gross details, like,
yeah, let's go for it.
so the only time that sodomization occurred was when their victims did not have leg hair. So it was very much not about, like, projecting their, like, potentially homoerotic feelings onto their victims. It was very much like a pedophilic compulsion. Like, there are people who act out, like Dahmer especially, like, tried to take advantage of people because he was dealing with his own self-hatred.
Oh,
But
for
in this
sure.
case, I think it was very much a projection of their hatred of women, and the most easily taken advantage of class of women is prepubescent, like, underage women.
Like
I
Dahmer.
don't think it was
Yeah,
I don't think it was them trying to fuck each other through their victims.
yeah.
I think that the older cousin, Anthony, was the most sick and depraved, and I think that the younger one, like, had those inclinations, and it wasn't until he moved in with his older cousin that their reign of terror, like, actually happened. They both
I
had the predisposition for, like, outward hatred,
I
but
think
it
though
wasn't.
he's on the right. That's a good question, right? Like, can we pull that up? I mean, he says,
No, it
it's
is
a
a good
really.
question to, like, think about.
And you look at Dahmer, why did he kill men? Well, it's clear. I mean, his whole family, his grandma was a devout Christian who
Yeah.
completely despised homosexuality and so it's like there's a reason he killed men, right? Young men.
Yeah.
Uh, but
He killed young gay men because
young
he
gay
didn't
men,
want to be
exactly.
gay.
Thank you.
So he was trying to slay the gay away.
Right. And which is, that's not gonna happen. So and
Yeah.
you saw what happened to him.
Right.
But I do think that those things, like, were those looked at back then? Was that kind of thing looked at back then? Because
I don't
back then,
think so.
yeah,
Oh,
because
sorry, go ahead.
people didn't even wanna talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Like, no one wanna talk about the, like, weird stuff, right?
Yeah.
it's like we talked about with Dahmer. The reason why he got away with some of his was they kinda shunned the community, the
Mhm.
black and gay community, like they didn't wanna look at it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But I think Kasbah was onto something earlier when he was talking about, like, the parents. What, like, is there something
Yeah.
behind the scenes that we don't know about his mom?
Which with him being adopted,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
there's
sure
some
there's
things you're
feelings
not
of
gonna know there.
Well,
abandonment of, like.
guys, I'm adopted. I was adopted when I was 10, and I haven't killed anybody.
Yeah,
Right.
no, that's fair.
I had a
Well,
really
and,
shitty first 10 years of my
yeah,
life, right? And
good on ya.
yeah, not a fucking
Effectively
serial killer
pretty odd
that
years
you
of
know of.
not.
I'm just kidding. That was a fucked up joke, sorry.
No,
But
it's
I'm
fine.
not.
Well, I was gonna make another fucked up joke where it's like
Yeah.
the OSHA sign of, like, this many days
Yeah.
since the last accident. It's like however long you've been alive since the last murdering because of childhood trauma.
Yeah,
Good on you, mate.
I'm also adopted, man. My sister and I were both adopted together, so that's awesome.
Oh,
Um,
I love that you were both able, like, to the same family adopted together.
yeah,
I
so
know
my
sometimes
sister and
that's
I
like.
were yeah, so there was me, my sister who's younger, and then we had a brother, his name was Ryan. He was adopted elsewhere. He was mentally handicapped. But yes,
That's
my sister and I were adopted together, so it was we have a really special bond. But yeah, so it's really cool that we just had somebody in here that's also adopted. So cheers,
Cheers, Cospa.
Cosmo. Cheers. I think that's how you say. Is that right? Did I get it right?
Yeah,
Time?
Right,
don't rock
Casbah? Like
Cospa.
rock the Casbah?
Yeah, don't rock the
Or
Cosmo.
is it Casbah?
Do we want to do? Hey, real quick before we forget, let's take a quick drink break. I call them drinking breaks. We don't have any sponsors, dude. We love people. We do commercials for them, and this one's for Von Davis at Schoolhouse Farms.
yeah, dude.
If you like doing
Clash Spa.
if you like bird seed,
Got
if you
it.
like what else? Bird seed. If you like distilling
You're about to hear
spirits,
it.
you like honey. He does it all. Let's hear it. Discover the taste of freshness at Schoolhouse Farms. Join Vaughn Davis and Beth Cole, passionate bird watchers and friends from York County, Maine, as they transform their love for nature into a thriving business. Since 2016, they have been dedicated to growing and distributing premium sunflower kernels, oils, gourmet popcorn, and heirloom grain products like corn, flour, and grits. What do they offer? Birdseed suppliers, high quality black oil sunflower seeds for local markets. Food retailers, a selection of sunflower oils, roasted kernels, gourmet popcorn, and heirloom cornmeal. Online shoppers enjoy gourmet popcorn and confection sunflower kernels from the comfort of your home. Floral markets, stunning sunflowers for Ohio-based florists. Distillers, specialty grains for brewing and distillation. Popcorn vendors, are you a kettle corn vendor? Talk to Vaughn or Beth about supplying your business with the lowest cost, high quality mushroom popcorn in the industry. Taste the difference. Customers can shop for delicious sunflower kernels, popcorn, flavored oils, and heirloom cornmeal and grits directly on their website or at selected retail stores and farmers markets across Ohio, Indiana, Maine, and New Hampshire. Their name pays tribute to the historic Freysinger School, built in 1862 on Davis Farms property. This one-room schoolhouse has a rich history, having served the community until 1939. Are you ready to connect? If there's an exciting opportunity to discuss, they would love to hear from you. Follow Schoolhouse Farms on Facebook today and become part of the community. This is Big Sturg with American Whiskey. All right, guys. So that's our guy, Vaughn Davis at Schoolhouse Farms. Great group. And listen, Kasaba, listen.
Clashba.
I'm so shitty at pronouncing it. I write stuff, but I'm not good at pronouncing it. But you want to do John Bonet?
Yeah.
Let's do John Bonet, bro.
With a guest host of Clashba.
Yeah, but here's the funny
thing. Now I'm not a guest anymore.
Listen.
No, I'm saying he is going
to. No, I know. I'm saying we can have a guest host because it's not two guest hosts. It's just one guest host.
Hey, let her have her moment for a second, bro.
Let me have my fucking moment, Dylan.
God, fuck, dude.
My girlfriend, Kayla.
Hey, guys, we're gonna. I love the John.
Sorry, you said to correct you when you're wrong.
It's true. Correct.
You're wrong.
He did. Listen,
I'm sorry.
we do the John Bonet case with him because I think that'd be fantastic.
I'm down.
I mean, with the comments he's been bringing in,
can we put
that knowledge?
Can we put the Facebook link on there so he can message us?
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I like that comment.
Hey, I'm into it because I think it was also a serial killer. Everyone thinks it was the clown or Santa Claus, but I don't think so. What does so selfish mean, Chris? Why do you? What
no, I'm being selfish. I think he's commenting on me.
That's Chris. That's one of the wineries.
Yeah, the burnt out winery. Whatever. I remember.
All right, guys. So can we transition a little bit here? I do want to talk about the killers, not because we think they're awesome.
No, but we should talk about them so we can, because I think that also ties into what I want to talk about later.
Yes,
which I kind of broach a subject to you, and I appreciate that we kind of get to save this for the later, because the person. Oh, what happened? Oh no.
He's saying that Santa. So John Bonet Ramsey, one of the people that people think that killed him was Santa. So I don't know why you laugh, because I'm fat in the beard. You thought he was making a joke?
Yeah,
you don't know
What's your alibi? What's your alibi?
No, that's what I'm saying. I don't know. That's why I thought it was funny.
Let's get back to the spot. No, he wasn't insulting me, which would have been funny. He might have. Are you talking about the Santa the killer, or are you making a joke about my weight? I'm down 111 pounds. So
I was down 111 pounds.
I'm just kidding, man.
Santa Sack is lifting light because there's a bunch of degens on the naughty list this year.
Yeah, so
he's talking about a serial killer.
Okay, so that's I know that. Listen, I know John Bonet. I was obsessed with that case, but the turning point came in 1978, right? Kenneth.
Sorry, mamas would like to contribute, and I apologize.
I know, but Kenneth, how do you say? I don't want to butcher the last name, guys. We've been through this, and I don't say the last.
Bianchi.
Thank you. Was arrested for a separate crime. We were talking about this earlier, and I thought it was robbery, but that led police to him. And during the interrogation, he began to unravel some things. I know you guys want to hit on this because I possibly had some of this shit wrong.
So,
okay.
So he was a big underachiever. He was a compulsive liar and big into petty theft. He had a short-lived marriage and a similar relief stint in college. He went from odd job to odd job in the early 70s. 75, he was 24 years old. And when he was arrested for burglary and stuff like that, but they connected evidence. But that purring.
Sorry, mamas, you can't.
Purring.
But
it's almost like Leslie. I'm sorry.
At that time, there was no murders or anything to link him to.
Yeah. Do you want to hit on him at all?
So
Kenneth.
So Kenneth Bianchi, he was the one, kind of like Casbah touched on. He wanted to be a cop, and he was perpetually unsuccessful in getting into the LAPD.
I wonder why.
Yeah, fucking wonder why. Might be that psych eval, like.
Right. No, I have not.
No, I would not. Look over there.
Right. Is that a flat oil?
Uh-huh. So he never cut the mustard, but through his multiple attempts, he did find a way of making friends within the police department. So he would get the opportunity to go along for ride-alongs. And he started during the time that his cousin and him were on their murder spiral, murder parade. Even though the police were just patrolling their regular neighborhoods, he would always redirect the conversation to the Hillside Strangler case.
Mm-hmm.
And he knew that there were two. So he already had this kind of elevated sense of superiority. And I think that is where, documentedly, as we'll find out, that's where this went wrong. But because they had gotten away with so much in such a short amount of time, I think that his narcissistic tendencies led him to believe that he was bulletproof. Yeah. So he was in a police car riding. He thought he was so much smarter. So he's riding along with these police officers, asking them questions about a case that they are actively investigating, along with the other 20 fucking serial cases that they're investigating. But sometimes some of the questions that he would ask were almost so pointed that they contained or were at least adjacent enough to information that the police had not disclosed to the public. He would ask questions where he wouldn't know to ask the question unless he knew what actually happened.
Yeah, so because police, law enforcement hold
stuff back.
Yeah, they're not going to say that what happened or what they found. So he's asking questions that could lead up to that answer, right? That they know.
Absolutely. And so when he starts kind of sorry, oh God, Jesus Christ, sorry, my cats just were chasing each other and almost ripped my headset off my head.
I thought that was fucking awesome.
Yeah. Welcome to my life. I have so many scratches all over my arms because of my fucking kitties.
Really mean cats, I guess.
No, they just. So Mama's is the mom, and then Krieg is one of her babies. So we're a multi-generational household, and she would just rather he moved out of the house and actually did something with his life.
That makes sense.
So whenever
my son's 9, and I think the same thing. So
yeah, once you're. She's 14. No, she's 14 or 15. And he's 12 or 13. They were rescues, so I don't know precisely. But she's like, "Fucking get on your shit. Like, go be productive somewhere
Yeah.
else."
Go get a job.
Yeah, get a fucking
I
job.
liked how
Get a fucking job.
say the name again. I'm terrible with the name.
Bianchi.
Casbah. Casbah.
Casbah.
Casbah. Ain't no
Police
difference.
knew extensive background on applicants. They must have known something about his mom. They wouldn't hire back then if you had family issues. When I got hired, they literally were in my
My ass and probed. Yeah.
in my ass.
They were plumbing the depths is what he's saying kindly.
Well, this guy's cool, man. I really enjoy this guy.
No,
He
I
brings
love
good
your
comments.
introspection.
But Bianchi, guys,
Oh,
we can
yeah,
all agree
so
he was a master manipulator, right?
yeah, like, he had a
But
slightly
wasn't
above
smart.
average IQ,
Yeah, but he wasn't
but I
smarter than
feel
the guy.
like but he was not smarter than the cops, and I think also the narcissistic tendencies of, like, thinking that you're better than everyone else leads you to, like, do things that a smart person would not do regardless of their intelligence. Like, IQ is like intelligence and or I guess interacting with human beings is like intelligence and wisdom. Like, I know smart things, but if I'm wise, I know how to do things with the things that I know.
Yeah.
And so he's on these ride-alongs and he's like asking questions, thinking he's being super nonchalant about the questions he's asking, but it like brought heat. So the cops started specifically asking what he was doing on the nights of the murders that had already occurred. And he like feigned ignorance and was like, "Oh, I don't know." So then he told his older cousin about what had happened, and his like Buono, like threatened to kill him if he did not leave town. He was like, "We had a good thing going and you fucking ruined it because of your stupid arrogance.
Yeah.
So if you don't get out of town, I will fucking murder you. And we will put it to bed." So that is when he moved to Bellingham, Washington.
Hell of a cousin.
Hell of a fucking cousin.
Yeah.
Like, sort your shit. You're ruining the debauchery that I would like to be
Yeah.
doing here. Like, you're fucking up my steez.
Yeah.
So I think now going back to the killer things, like, so now Bianchi has like fucked off to Bellingham, which is inevitably how they did get caught. But it wasn't until Bianchi had this like narcissistic arrogance of like, I'm going to ride along with the police and I'm going to ask them questions about their investigation of the murders and tortures that I am committing, that they were like, "You got to get the fuck out or I will make you a martyr for our debauchery."
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's kind of interesting because Bianchi was such a master manipulator. Once they caught up to him and questioned him and he he tried to like play it off, and it was kind of
Mhm.
interesting because he tried to say he suffered from, I believe it was
Well,
multiple
personalities.
personality
Yep.
disorder, yeah, and
Uh,
he kind of portrayed himself as a victim of his own mind, right? But
yeah. The killer was called Steve.
yeah. And he was a victim of his own mind, but everybody like, listen, the evidence against him was so overwhelming that that shit couldn't stick. Like, he had manipulated people for so long that he thought he could do it through the court system, and it
Mhm.
just fucking
I
couldn't
just nope.
happen. I mean, and I think that kinda leads to the fact that, he was like, "I'm smarter than you in this," but he finally gives in, and he eventually confesses. We know that, right? And he implicates his cousin, Angelo Biano, I think Biano?
Buono.
Buono,
Buono.
you know me,
Buono.
my pronunciation of
More
names.
like a blono, but a buono.
Yeah, and guys, they together, not just Angelo, but Kenneth, they had lured their victims under various pretexts, sometimes posing, like we talked about, as the police officers, or they were just trying to be, most of the time, or they were offering, let's think, you broke down the side of the road, I'll help
Mhm.
you, right? So they were offering assistance. And Buono was, I I feel like through my research, he was more domineering,
Yeah.
and he plays a significant role in the manipulation and the violence, while Bianchi was often more charming of the two, if that would make sense, which made really made the perfect combination, a deadly combination.
Which they had to be somewhat of a good combo, like you're saying, because in reality, they were pimps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Buono owned a car upholstery upholstery.
Don't
Jesus
they
Christ.
all?
Upholstery.
Owned an upholstery business, and despite like not having any experience, he was like relatively good at it. So during Bianchi's like after being adopted and just like fucking shit up at every level, his family just like sent him to his adopted
You can't fuck it up
cousin
like
family.
Bianchi.
Yeah. So they're like, "Oh, cool, you're fucking up. Let's just send you to the person who's gonna fuck you up the most."
Right.
So he like Womo had a documented history of like abusing his wives, abusing his children to the point where he would like make his children watch when he abused their mother. Like in terms of pieces of shit, this man is the penultimate shit.
Yeah, and you know what was did you watch any of the trial or research any of the trial?
No, I went deep into Veronica Compton because I thought maybe I would be the the Barley Quinn, as it were.
Let me hear what we got out of that. Let me
Well, it comes later, so
Yeah.
let's do the killer
Well,
stuff, and then
the trial I found like the trial was super interesting because let's be honest, it's nothing short of sensational, right? It
right.
captured the nation's attention at the time. You
Oh,
know,
actually, you
go ahead.
fucking right. Veronica Compton did testify
Yeah,
because Cuomo's trial took over 2 years, and it was the most expensive trial that had ever happened in California,
right.
Also, the longest.
The
and
longest.
also the longest. Yeah,
Guys, look,
like
listen, I was going to say all these things, and you guys are hitting this. So I'm so proud of you.
yeah.
I'm so
Sorry, let me
fucking
just
proud of
cut
you.
you off to say the thing that you were gonna say
No, I
and
love
make
it
it seem like it
though.
was
I love it because we're on the same page. It
yeah,
literally captured the nation's attention, guys.
yeah.
There were shocking revelations.
Like, it's
In
not a
this,
Bronco going 12 miles an hour, but, like,
right?
people were paying attention.
Literally, and you know, it was. I think it's the psychological games that were played
Totally.
by Bianchi, right? Because let's be
Yeah.
honest, you know, Bianchi's attempt to, you know, for insanity was met by like so much skepticism, and he wasn't used to that, right?
Yeah.
Especially if prosecutors would like lay out the grisly details of the crimes, and the jury
I'd be like,
had to contend with the horrific nature of the
"Mhm,
murder and the chilling personalities of the killers, and that's there's so much fucking drama in this trial. And in 1983, Bianchi was sentenced to life in prison while
mhm."
his boy received, life sentence without parole. But
Yeah.
even the justice, was justice served? I don't know. But the
Well, and
scars on the community remain today.
and during, like, Bianchi's first trial, one of the things is, like, as soon as he realized he had gotten caught, he was full on willing to throw Buomo under the bus.
Yes.
Like,
Save his own
they
ass.
knew that yeah, like, he saved his own like, he was like, "I'm insane," and blah, 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 and then
Yeah.
he was
I
like,
got two
"Okay, yeah, I did
personalities.
it." Like, "Okay, yeah, I did it, but I did it with my cousin." And then he realized that if he got convicted and sent to jail, he'd get murdered for being a fucking snitch. So
Yeah.
then he tried to, like, circle back and be like, "No, I was just insane. And my multiple personality Steve is who committed all of these
Well,
murders."
you look at it and you're like, because at some point, listen, you make your bed and you sleep in it. So it's
Yeah.
Right.
like,
You fucking
at some point, the two of them are like, we listen, we can get away with this, right? We can continue to do what we're doing and we can get away with it.
Until you go to Washington, do the same exact thing.
Yeah. And then you get caught. And then it's like at some point you realize like there's professionals and they know that I'm fucking lying.
yeah.
So now what do I do? They don't believe in Steve. They don't believe that I'm fucking multiple personalities.
Which
So
Yeah.
what are they gonna do? Guess what? It wasn't my idea. It was my cousin's idea.
right.
whatever I can do
So
to save my
here's the
own ass.
bus. Let me throw you under it.
Unless you can sit down, like, let's be honest. When Dahmer was caught, the motherfucker didn't show up. Didn't shut up, right? He
Yeah.
admitted everything. But these guys were interesting because they tried to play it off for so fucking long, even though everybody knew they did it.
Right. Yeah. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, but the reason why it got linked back to California was when he got arrested in Washington, he still had his Los Angeles ID.
Yes.
And when they saw the way those murders were, they were like, oh shit, this has been going on for a year.
So yeah, that's what you were saying earlier, Sturge, is like they got caught because he murdered people in Bellingham, Washington, and then got picked up on just like the tiniest fucking thing. But then also like that there, and then because Bianchi was the one who talked to the LAPD and was sketchy as fuck in the police ride-alongs.
Yeah, right.
Like, so they were like, "Oh, this motherfucker? Yeah, I've heard of him. His reputation precedes him."
Honestly, these guys,
fucking degens from
God,
Love Country.
There's something. There's fucking something. And go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say like so Bianchi obviously like is gearing towards like throwing his cousin under the bus. He is grasping at all of the straws that could possibly save him. Like anything, he is looking for a line. Doesn't even need to be a lifeline. It could just be for like a little bit longer line. He threw his cousin under the bus. He was happy to make up a narrative of like multiple personality Steves.
Yeah.
Like, this is a man who is not
and it was a load of shit.
Like, he was like, I will not be restricted by the truth in order to save my own ass. Like, I will spin whatever tale I.
But is that surprising though? I don't think it's surprising.
No, it's not. And I think that is kind of like one of the hallmarks of like the two kind of like different. I mean, there are multiple, but like one of the distinct methods of like sociopathy, psychopathy is like once that kind of downward spiral starts, in their case, it wasn't the murders that were causing the spiral. Like they were on the spree and they were just doing it to live it, to love it. But the downward spiral for Bianchi was when he got caught and incarcerated, and that's when the demented desperation spiral started happening.
Well,
and that's how like Veronica Compton got brought into it.
Yeah. Yes. I find serial killers interesting because you have like two types, right? You have some that are cowards and they try to get their way out. Then you have like the ones that are like Dahmer who are like, yeah, I fucking ate 13 people and murdered however many. And I should.
John Wayne Gacy, 33.
And super like just completely honest about the crimes.
Yeah.
And, it's just really intriguing to differ the two, right?
Yeah. I feel like the compulsory ones are like, here's how I did it. I don't know why I did it, but I will tell you all of the facts.
Yeah.
But the ones who are like raging. No, they're not trying to hide it. They're like, this is what I did and why I felt I needed to do it. But the ones who do it for like the pleasure of it, for the pleasure of it, to enjoy it, to be able to chase this brain state of elation,
right? I mean,
it totally is a high. Like they're chasing that high.
There's some people that murder people like Dahmer, and they're like, "Yeah, put me in prison." Then there's other people that serial killers, and they're like, "This isn't fucking. You're not an alcoholic. You're not a drug addict. You can't go to AA for fucking murdering people.
Yeah,
like, you done fucked up. You got to go to prison. Like you're like, it's like, well, I got two person. It doesn't fucking matter. You're going to prison. Right. Like whether you fake, like this isn't like you don't have. This is nothing that you can fix.
No,
you can't become a good person and then go out in society after murdering 18 people.
Like, well, good thing I solved all of those issues.
Right. It's like,
and I definitely didn't pay my therapist to say I solved all of those issues.
That's right. and it's enough to talk. It's enough talking about these fuckers, right? Because they're horrible people, and I do want to talk about the social impact, and the fact
Well,
that Hillside. Go ahead.
well, and I like to pivot kind of like this is like the sneaker kind of a thing is like so Veronica Compton, who is sometimes like touted as like the real life Harley Quinn, she grew up very much like one of the Hillside Stranglers victims.
Mhm.
She was born around the same time. She was just 5 years younger than Bianchi. And she was born to a Mexican immigrant father with a mother who was born from a British immigrant. And they were born, like, she was born into the affluent kind of Hollywood lifestyle. And only because her father had connections to multiple different Mexican cartels.
Mhm.
And as soon as she reached the age of 5, he and his friends started sexually abusing her and her younger siblings. And so she immediately just started having this, like, trauma from the age of consciousness. Like, I don't remember a lot from before I was the age of 5. So just to have that be at the forefront of your formative memories, like your goose is cooked.
Yeah,
Like
for sure.
I hope that you can get the help that you need. And she never did, which fucking sucks in hindsight.
Yeah, yeah. You look at that, and it's sad, right? It's hard to, yeah, it's really hard to grasp that.
It's sadder than like Dahmer stuff because like Dahmer had sadness, but then like just kept perpetuating the debauchery.
Yeah, he
She
fucked himself.
she had ebbs and flows of like participation in like actual society, but we'll
Right.
get to that after you say
Yeah,
it.
I do like Chris's comment here. He can rot in prison with all 3 of the people in his head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They
Uh,
should get consecutive life sentences where each one of those people should serve their life sentences.
right, right. Just bring the casket and they're done after 80 years, right? Like,
Yeah, he
you
has
got
to
good
pay for
memory.
all 3 of them
Right.
that are stacked 18 feet deep instead of just 6.
That's right. Guys, now, so the Hillside Strangler, the case prompted significant discussions about women's safety and, the responsibilities, right? Highlighted the vulnerabilities that many women faced and led to an increased awareness around issues of sex crimes and, victim advocacy, right? I think this is huge. Like, this is how a lot of this started, the sex crimes and stuff started. And I think really we look at the fact that local police departments began to reassess their procedures and even the protocols for handling cases that involved women and sexual violence. And back then they wanted to deny it, right? The fear generated by these murderers led to the community support networks that were forming at the time and aimed at protecting women and educating them about safety. You look at the fucking crimes that happen day in and day out. Most of the time, a lot of times it's men on women, right? And back then, this shit wasn't really talked about, and they
Mhm.
reformed this stuff, right? They reformed it, and you know, we can talk about these douchebags and we don't want to, right? We don't wanna make it about them,
Yeah,
right? Fuck
Right.
them. They
but
ruined
I
so many lives.
yeah, I have a lot of information on what is arguably their last victim, and I
Yeah.
say there, but it's mostly Bianchi's victim. So, this woman, Veronica Compton, was built, Jesus fucking Christ. She was born in September of 1956. She was born to a Mexican immigrant father, had a British kind of like immigrant mother, and she encountered such a life of strife and encountered so much trauma that also perfectly aligns with all of the victims of the earlier Hillside Stranglers victims. When she was 5, her father started sexually abusing her. And by the time she was 10, her mother managed to get a divorce from her father, but he was a Catholic traditionist, and he was also in the upper echelon of Los Angeles's like elite. So he had this like, oh, well, you can't diminish my reputation. So he threw lawyers and money at contesting this divorce. But the thing that actually worked was the documented proof of Veronica's father's extramarital affairs.
Yeah.
Like, he was a cheater. And I mean, despite being a Catholic traditionalist, like, he was like, oh, well, I'll just atone for that on Sunday. So her and her mother and their siblings branched off from their father's influence in Los Angeles. But because her older brother's only influence on how to run a family and be the head of household was from her abusive ass fucking father's example, when they moved to their own place, the abuse just kept coming. Like, it
Right.
was same story, next chapter. And by
Which
the
is heartbreaking.
time, oh, like, which is so sad.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things that I have really struggled with in, like, my fucked up family dynamic is, like, how do I break the cycle of abuse?
Yeah,
Like,
100%.
when am I pushing it off onto other people where it's their responsibility? Or, like, where is it that I am, like, saying no to all of it? I can't say
Right.
no for
And
other
it's crazy
people.
because you
I
see
can
these
say no
stories.
for me,
Yeah, and
but
you
I
see
can't.
these stories and you realize that we're not alone,
Yeah,
right? You know?
totally. Like, I can say no for me, but does that make it worse for the other people who aren't at a place where they can also say no?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, am I being selfish for saying no
Yeah.
or self-preservationist? Like, it's
Yeah.
a whole fuckadoodle.
Yeah, I like where you're hitting there, though. I
Yeah,
think
like,
that's it's deep.
yeah, how do you say no to what you know is wrong without making the wrongness then be imparted onto other people?
Yeah, that's deep.
And those other people, like, aren't necessarily able or willing to say the no that will then, like, carry over to the next stuff. So then it almost feels like an attack
Yeah,
of you on the next tier down of, like, well, it's not my problem, so now it's your fucking problem. I'm like, no, but just pass the buck. Like, we're
yeah.
passing it forward. Like, it
That's
should
what we
be the
do, right?
person of the,
That's society,
like,
right? That's
Right.
what you do.
yeah. It should be the person who is doing the fucked upness. Like,
Yeah,
they need to fucking fix it. But because it's so multi-generational, you like, trickle down economics never worked. Fuck you, Reagan. But like, trickle down like emotionomics also like, it doesn't work unless everyone from the top down just says like fucking no. Just
you know
So
say fucking no.
go ahead, Dilly.
so MyKala, I don't know how far in that you wanted to go. Were you
Oh,
gonna Did you wanna tie Compton into Bianchi
yes. Yes, that is where I was going.
with Kim Breed?
Yes.
Let's
Uh that is the plan. But I also have a kitty. So if you would like to do some segue, I will have opinions after. And like, if you have something to chime in with now.
So
But
Compton
so we're figuring it out. Yeah.
Compton, she was a writer. She wrote a serial killer, what would you call it, a novel or a script?
So, ooh, okay. Never mind. I'll talk about Compton some more. So she experienced so much like childhood trauma. And
Did
then by the time that she got out of it, when she was 15, she got diagnosed with both breast cancer and cervical cancer at 15. So her doctors at the time recommended her to have a double mastectomy and a hysterectomy. and she had also been suffering from a lifelong kidney disorder. And she, I will asterisk say, relatively selfishly, was like, I would like to have a child, which, given your genetic makeup, that's wild. But she was like, I would like to be able to have a child someday, so I will not do these various mastectomies, and I will just do chemotherapy. So at the age of 15, which is wild, like breast cancer and cervical cancer at the age of 15, on top of all of the generational trauma that you have experienced up until that point, like, I am not surprised that she has no idea of what actual reality is.
Right.
I deal with my own levels of trauma and strife and other things, and I feel like I'm barely able to navigate that.
Girl, I feel that with my soul.
Dude, that situation, I have no I cannot. The fact that she was like, "I'm not getting those surgeries. I will just do chemo and I will sort it out," like, shows the depths of her, like, braveness and, like, power of will, which almost makes this whole story sadder. So she decides not to get the surgeries. She just does chemo. That does put her cancer into remission. She's still dealing with her kidney disorder. And because of this scare of, like, both her breasts and her cervix, she decides that she needs to get pregnant as soon as possible because she either won't be able to or she's going to die.
Yeah.
So at the age of 19, she encounters this popular LA boxer and is cutting with the jib of his vibe. And she decides to get in a relationship. She gets pregnant and has a kid, but turns out this LA boxer is equally as degenerate as every other man in her life and is extremely physically abusive to the point where the last known instance of domestic abuse, she had to get partial facial reconstruction. So she leaves him with the help of some friends. She escapes back to her father's house, the gem of a human being that he is. And now she's kind of like foisted into the upper echelons of LA society. But she had a kid with this boxer who beat the shit out of her. And her father, the Catholic traditionalist, says, I will not have an unwed mother in my house. But if you marry someone of my choosing, then I will let you be here. So this is where she becomes Veronica Compton. And Compton, her husband, I honestly don't know or remember his first name, but he is Compton. But her husband has ties to the same cartels that her father does. So now she is in the situation with a child, physically abused, mentally abused, verbally abused, and now she has a cartel's worth of access to weed, pills, and cocaine. And this is where her cocaine spiral starts at the age of 19.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible.
So,
Just beginning life, right?
Yeah.
yeah, just literally, it is wild to me that we expect seniors in high school to know what they're going to do for the rest of their life and also incur hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt to, like, figure that shit out. I changed my major 5 times in 3 years before I dropped out, and I was like, I got no fucking idea what the fuck I'm
Oh,
doing.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
I'm like, no, this was a bad choice. So Veronica leaves her abusive boxer ex-husband, and when she moves back in with her father in Los Angeles, which arguably not the best dude, she ends up enrolling in this actor studio course with, I don't remember his name, but he, like, was an acting coach for, like, Al Pacino, Gene Hackman, like, some of the kind of luminaries of the late 80s. Like, he taught the best how to be the best, and she was accepted into their fold. Like, she had the charisma, she had the makings of an actual star, and she really shone as a playwright. Like, she had the charisma, she could, like, be on stage, but she really was better suited to behind the scenes. She worked for numerous studios in LA as a playwright or as like a copy editor. She helped make other people be better, whether it was like her actors on her projects or it was other people's like scripts. She had figured her shit out, except for cocaine was ravaging through the theater and like cinematic industry. And so like she had this comedic she had this genius of screenplay, but because of her father's like cartel influences and her ex-husband's influences, like she would party all night and then just do like rails of coke to be able to get up and like fulfill her
Yeah.
her screenplay deadlines. Like the genius was there, but it was so entrenched in like a constant state of like crisis management. Like I got big feels for her. I got big feels for her.
Honestly, I don't see how you wouldn't, right?
Right.
I mean, it's, you know, I think a lot of people can take this personal, right? I mean, just the
Yeah.
situation, and it's hard, right? It's this kind of stuff isn't easy to talk about.
No.
You know what I mean?
It's not.
And some cases are harder than others. I found
Yeah.
this case kind of like interesting, but also hard, right?
Yeah.
Does that make
For
sense?
me,
I
oh,
found it
it totally makes
intriguing, but I
sense.
also because
Like,
I'm a true crime fanatic, but this case for me was difficult at the same time, and almost as much as it was intriguing.
for me, the hardest part was the complete disregard for the essence of humanity of the killers and the ability of them to manipulate Vanessa. Because, like, giving that whole backstory is like the people that Anthony or like Buono and Bianchi took advantage of was the person that Veronica was to her core. Like she was their full victim MO. But she had gotten to a point in her life where, despite the cocaine addiction, she was relatively successful as like an actress, as a playwright, as a screenwriter. Like she had gotten her life to a point where she like I joke about myself sometimes as like I'm a functional alcoholic, but like she
Hey,
was a
We
functional
all
coke addict. Like we all know that like the amount that I know that the amount I ingest is like probably like a little bit too much, but like it's not that bad. Like it's not a problem. I still show up to work.
yeah,
right.
She wasn't showing up to work. And so Veronica, at this point, she wants to make a screenplay that's about a female serial killer. Jesus Christ. It's called The Mutilated Cutter.
Yep.
And most of the female serial killers at that time were mostly baby killers, and that wasn't the vibe that like she wanted her antagonist slash protagonist to be someone who murdered people with the intensity that men murder people.
right.
Right.
So she
It's wild,
decided,
though, right?
I know.
It gets crazier.
Yep. So she decided that she was going to reach out to Kenneth Bianchi, who, like, this was at the time where she's like, I got my life on track, even though I'm a coke addict, but I'm like at least a functioning playwright.
I got my life on track. I'm a
Yeah, I'm
functioning
like, I got my
cocaine
life
addict.
on two
Let me
tracks.
Let me send my murderous script to a serial killer.
Yeah. Yeah. What if I just, and here's the thing that's like so crazy. It's like, she is an intelligent woman, but she was so addled by the depths of her like drug dependency that she, and given all of her like previous trauma and things that she experienced, she was ripe for the picking. She was exactly the kind
Yeah.
of victim that Bianchi would have picked in the first place. Like, she just wasn't a sex worker, but she had the whole fucking like emotional
Yep.
litany of things that would have led her to be easily swayed by his specific sort of charisma.
Mhm.
So
Like, yeah.
so now we're at the point where I was bringing up earlier that
Yeah.
MyKala wanted to hit on the way previous life of her, which is a great backstory I didn't even know. But so her and Bianchi start messaging or sending mail to each other left and right
Yep.
to the point where they start falling in love. She goes and visits Bianchi and they
Mhm.
come up with this mastermind plan. Bianchi's still like, I can get out of prison. I can make
Oh,
this
I could take care of you if only I wasn't in prison.
right. So
'Cause
he comes up
she's so searching for someone who can take care of her. No one's ever taken care of her.
right.
And he's like, "I got you."
So they come up with this mastermind plan. So he smuggles her a glove that has
Yep.
his semen in it.
Gotta tie that
Somehow
up.
this gets out of or gets to their visiting room.
They
He passes
smuggled it
it
out in
on.
the
Yeah,
spine of a book.
he
They had,
passes
like, a
it on to
hardback
her,
book.
and they
Like,
come up with this mastermind plan where she's going to go to Washington, kidnap a young female,
yep,
strangle them, and then plant that semen inside of the woman to make
yep,
it seem like that killer's still on the loose.
exactly. Because at that time, the forensic evidence was like, "We got a semen sample, we can only test the blood type." And
Right.
so he knew that his semen and, like, but, like, he knew that that evidence was there, but he knew that that evidence was not tied to him because it didn't have that level of intricacy. Like, they didn't have, like, a, "Hey, jizz in this cup so we can, like, run your
Right.
spectrometry, like, data." Like, the science had not advanced to that part, so he thought that, like, jizzing into a glove, tied it off, smuggled it in the spine of a book. He tucked that into the spine of a book and then just, like, casually, like, "Here you go. Here's this book that I would really love for you to read," and then expected her to go and kill someone the way that he used to kill people to absolve him of murder.
But see, like, where she fucked up
Yeah, is
is
the coke.
no, more than that. So she meets Kim Breed at
Yep.
a tavern there, and they share drinks, they hang out
Oh, wait.
multiple days in a row,
I
and
have
then
a
she
real
goes and
quick
gets dinner with Kim's family.
Yeah.
Can I have a real quick addendum?
Yeah,
So, Veronica checked into a hotel. She had an assload of coke. So, she was going over in her mind everything that she needed to do. She was like, "I gotta do this, and here's how I gotta do the thing." Like, she was weird, like, hyping herself up to it. And her method of disguise, she donned like a shitty blonde wig and stuffed a pillow into her shirt so she could be perceived as pregnant. So then the pretenses under which she lured Kim Breed back to her apartment are fucking wild and also indicative of maybe like how we learn things since the 70s because she did a bunch of coke, figured out what she wanted to do, stuffed her fucking pillow into her shirt, and then went to a bar. Kim had another job, but she also sometimes bartended on weekends. And so Veronica was like chumming her up and be like, "Hey, yo, friendo." And by the time that Kim's shift ended, like, one, why are we not questioning why a supposedly pregnant woman is coming into your bar at 10 and also drinking.
Right.
I guess it's a 70s. Maybe we didn't know back then. But, like, that's not your first red flag. It's like there's a supposedly pregnant woman drinking at your bar for multiple hours waiting for you to get off work. So then Kim gets off work. They go take a little drive. Kim has to go to the grocery store because she's got to get food for her kids.
Mm-hmm.
She picks up the food, goes back to her house, drops it off. They're like drinking liquor from hard liquor from bottles in the car on the way back, doing rails of cocaine off of the fucking dashboard. And supposedly she is pregnant. And no one was like, yeah, maybe you're just like our DD. Like maybe this isn't the move for you. Like it's only when you're I have thoughts about what happens later, but yeah. So she is a willing participant each step of the way of like, drink at my bar. Sure, you're pregnant. Yeah, I'm gonna go grocery shopping. Sure, you're pregnant. Drop it off with my kids. Still fucked up and drunk. Yep, still pregnant. Let's go to a
Right.
park. Like, drink some hard liquor out of bottles. Snort some cocaine off of the fucking dashboard. Still pregnant. Let's go do more degenerate shit. Still pregnant.
Hey, let's go get one last drink back at my hotel room.
Yeah, like, which is just let's go to the Shangri-La, da 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 da.
So what's good, but still chilling, is Compton, once in the hotel room, is able to tie her up.
Yeah.
And fails multiple times to strangle her with a cord to the point where she escapes, takes off. Compton freaks out, runs, jumps on a plane back to LA.
Context. So while they were in the hotel room, they kept doing cocaine, kept getting drunk.
Yeah.
And then Veronica convinces Kim that, like, oh, we're really fucked up. Like, we should just post for some, like, funny little bondage videos. Like, wouldn't it be so fun to send your boyfriend some of these videos? Like, take some Polaroids and then your boyfriend can just, like, jerk off to these later. And Kim, being so fucked up and also a single mom, like, she was like, yeah, that sounds great. So she allows Veronica to admittedly haphazardly, like, tie up her legs, tie up her arms, because it's the 5 point. So these are loose, and she then tries to strangle her, which would have been the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 point strangulation of the Hillside Strangler. But because they've been doing cocaine all night and also been drinking all night, and she also has been doing cocaine for the 2 days, she's in such a psychosis that by the time she, like, actually gets to the point where she needs to try and, like, do the thing, she can't. Like, her brain tells her no. So even in just, like, all of the external factors of, like, this is the moment where you can, like, tip over that edge into, like, there's no coming back. The moment of there's no coming back, she could not. So she actually stops, and because she had so loosely bound Kim's ropes, Kim was able to untie herself. And she was upset. She was like, I thought this was a bondage. Like, you were taking bondage photos. Like, this was supposed to be a joke. And Veronica fully collapses in on herself and starts hysterically sobbing.
Yeah.
Because 1, she knows that she failed. 2, she knows that she never wanted to do this from the outset. And 3, she actually liked Kim and, like, is glad she's not dead, but, like, fuck, now she's brought her friend that she's been hanging out with for the last few hours, like, into this bleh. And this was, like, the one flash of reality that I think that Veronica had. Like, in psychosis, there are sometimes, like, mental otherness. Like, there can sometimes be, like, a moment of, like, true recognition, and I think this one was that for Veronica, because she ended up in the fetal position on the hotel room's floor, hysterically sobbing,
Yeah.
to the point where Kim, who was just about to be strangled to death, actually was like, "Are you okay?" and tried to comfort her. Like, the
But you
distress of,
try to
like,
get to
what
that
Kim just
mindset. Yeah.
like, the distress of what Kim just experienced, she could understand that it was less than what Veronica was experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, and you try to go back and try to put yourself in the mindset that they're in. I think it's difficult to do
Yep.
because I think a lot of people look at things and, you know, you judge, right? I think it's a big thing in our culture, at least, is
Yep.
to judge a response or what's going on in the moment, and this part's tough.
Yeah. It
I actually didn't know that we were gonna hit on this part. You know, I didn't write anything of this down, and so it's pretty shocking. I know Dylan said something about it to me earlier, but it's a lot to digest, bro. Like,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying?
So
It's a
so
lot to fucking digest.
so the long story short, and the best way to summarize it for people, this was Bianchi's desperate attempt
Yes.
to make it seem like the serial killer was still out there and he
Right.
was innocent.
Yeah. That's why he smuggled his semen out in the spine of the book. Like, he had so fully enraptured
It's crazy to go into
Veronica's
that depth
psyche
though, right?
into being like,
He was innocent in his mind.
I
yeah,
I know, but,
yeah.
like, to go
I
to
think, what is
such
it, like,
depths though.
hybrista, hybristophilia. So it's termed as, like, Bonnie and Clyde syndrome, but hybristophilia is a paraphilia that describes a sexual interest in people who have committed crimes. It's also known as the Bonnie and Clyde syndrome,
Yeah.
which I don't think that Bonnie and Clyde is, like, the best, like, example of that, because I honestly don't think that Bonnie was, like, a willing participant in it or sexually, like, aroused by it. I think she was just along for the ride. Like, I think that's where, like, the Harley Quinn and the Joker. It's like, not to delve too deep into the
Yeah.
DC comics of the sphere, but, like, Harley Quinn used to be a psychiatrist working in Arkham Asylum,
Yep.
and she was specifically tasked to work with the Joker. And through her interactions with the Joker, she eventually became sympathetic to his plight. And he eventually just, like, rewired her perceptions and emotionally manipulated her into becoming his, like, she's often portrayed as, like, the kawaii, like, the comedic side character of it, but, like, her story is honestly one of the saddest. But, like, and I say this knowing that Batman's parents were murdered in front of him. Like, Harley Quinn, Dr. Harley Quinn's story is one of the saddest fucking stories in the DC universe, because it is a woman who has overcome all of the trials, trauma, and triumphed over it to become someone who can uniquely understand serial killers and people who wish to do harm to other people, while also, like, not succumbing to it.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes an understanding breeds, like, an acceptance of a thing, and for the longest time, she was like, "Nope, I understand these people, but I will not become one of those people." It's like the premise of Criminal Minds. Like, I know how to get into the minds of these fucked up people, but I will never become those
Oh,
fucked up
you know
people.
what's interesting? So when I think about Bianchi and Buono, the biggest question that I had in my mind which I hope it doesn't make me an odd person. But I wondered to myself what made their, I guess, like their methods so effective. I actually, I believe their ability to seem somewhat trustworthy,
Mhm.
right? When I was looking into this case, that's kind of what I got. I felt like they seemed like decent guys, and that trustworthiness played a significant role for them. I mean, they use charm clearly. They got what, a 12-year-old and a
Yeah.
14-year-old with them.
Well,
And
I'd
so,
say part of what I think is, like, it's not that they portray a level of trustworthiness, is that they portray a false level of
but
vulnerability.
no, that's what I was gonna say because
Oh,
they
sorry.
you
I
no,
didn't mean
you're
to
fine, you're
interrupt.
fine. But I definitely agree with that because I wrote it on my notes here. They use a charm and
Mhm.
you know, to deceit and lure their victims, exploiting the vulnerabilities of the women that they were targeting, right? So
Yeah.
at that moment in time, I'm not saying maybe they didn't appear trustworthy at the time, but they were able to approach different women at different times and
Yeah.
manipulate the situation and figure out what their vulnerabilities were, to each victim that they were targeting. And
Totally.
man, that's what I think. So I'm curious, again, what do you guys think about Bianchi and Buono and the effectiveness of their methods?
Well, I think, like, Bianchi was just grasping at whatever straws he could. Like, Buomo was, like, the tight lip, like, he was, like, the master in their apprentice relationship. So, I honestly almost wonder, like, what he got away with before Bianchi, like, came in and they started doing their, like, duo stuff, which then Bianchi, like, fully just fucking ruined with his, like, LAPD ride-alongs and then having to get exiled to Bellingham, Washington, and then murdering 2 people, and then when he got caught for that, fully fucking throwing Buomo under the rug. Like,
Right.
when Bianchi got caught for strangling, like, for those murders in Bellingham, he fully threw his cousin under the rug, which also threw him under the same rug, because what could have just been a trial for 2 murders was instead 12 murders,
Right.
like, in an interstate, which means that the FBI is involved, which means you are so I think FBI is, like, fucked beyond
Yeah.
insane, like, you are so fucked. Like, they will get taps, they will know things that you are going to do before you even do them, and it's your fucking fault that they know about you.
Right. I agree.
So, Veronica Compton, circling back, so she's had a fucked childhood, they've all had fucked childhoods. She has managed to regroup and have a pretty successful life as, like, an actress, as a screenwriter, like, screenwriter specifically.
Hey, MyKala,
And what?
not trying to cut you off,
Well, yeah,
but with some other things that's happened with Veronica later,
yeah.
I suggest we do an episode on Veronica.
Do you think we maybe, like, pause and just kinda do your
Yes,
thing?
because of stuff that
Yeah,
happened
we
after.
are we are at 2 hours, so
No,
I
but
feel that.
I don't say we do. I just say we do the part 2 of it,
Yes, part 2. We'll do a
right?
part 2
Part
because
2, for sure.
there's a lot more that we can hit on
But
with Veronica.
Yeah,
the thing is about it, it's a mind fuck.
Wait till you
it
hear
is a
more.
mindfuck.
Since there's shit you're
Like,
talking about that I just don't fucking know right now, and I'm just gonna be completely fucking honest.
Well,
I
Sturgs,
texted evidently Dylan's all about this fucking
Sturgs,
part.
there's more than
I'm
one.
over here like time the fuck.
We need a
I
part 2
was
because
like, I got an hour and a half on
I
this
understand that.
shit.
I googled it on my phone, and I'm like, dude, I don't like. Listen, well, this is a whole new fucking chapter we're taking, but we need to fucking stop because
Well, it's a whole new
I am
chapter with
so
me at the helm,
mind
or
fucked
at
right
the
now,
side
brother.
of the helm.
Yeah, she was all about. I'm like, listen, like, let me pop off this question about what do you guys think about Bianchi and Buono?
We out here derailing.
No. But here's
It's
the
all
thing.
tied.
It's all tied together, and it's super fucking nuts.
Yeah.
I say
part 2.
I say we do a part 2.
I think we do a part 2.
Maybe we don't even do it on Friday. We do a bonus episode where either
you gotta let me know which day though.
We'll figure it out. We'll figure that out.
Okay.
But guys, to be honest,
Philip Lowe is feeling blue balled.
I'm not blue balling you, Phil. You're putting goofy ass comments about cereal and eating peanut butter out of asses, my boy. Like, I'm just, I love you, buddy. You know what I mean? I just, it's not the place for it, bro.
It's off camera.
It's fine. I'd like to see you eat that peanut butter out of somebody's butt, but we can talk about that on another episode. So we're gonna make this a part 2. We can't do it Friday, but we're gonna get with her, with MyKala, try to figure out
because now
how we're gonna do this episode. Maybe we do. We got some ideas, I think. But so I guess we weren't planning on this, right?
No.
So
no. I honestly probably have like at least an hour and a half or 2 hours of like more things to say. So
that's why I was like, hey, let's leave Veronica for because we could keep going with Veronica.
Well, I'm over here trying to keep up and Google, and I'm like, oh fuck! And then I saw this, and I'm like, oh shit, dude.
There's a lot.
I texted Phil, and I'm like, bruh, this shit's insane. So you guys, of course, it's Friday night. Hopefully you guys are, having a drink, enjoying yourself after a long week of work.
I'm on the West Coast. I'm like, it's so early. I'm like, it's 7 p.m. I could go meet friends to do
it's
stuff.
Almost 10:15.
No, I know.
No, but we really enjoy having you on, and I'm glad you're a part of the team, man. It's super fucking sweet. But we're going to wrap the episode up of the Hillside Strangler, but we're not going to wrap it up. We're going to end part 1. We're going to come out with part 2. And, this case does remain a haunting part of the American crime history, and that's why we're doing it. It serves as the reminder that, being vigilant and supporting the community and awareness is super crucial from preventing such tragedies, right? Learning about your surroundings, knowing and understanding your rights, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah.
And we're going to take it deeper. But thank you for joining Big Sturg and Justice League and MyKala tonight, I should say, on Sip and Solve. So pour yourself another glass, take a moment to reflect on the lives that are actually affected by this case, right? That's what's most important. We're not here to talk about the douchebags that are committing the crimes, which we do talk about them, but we're here to give the victims life and a voice that their voice, because their voice was taken way too soon.
Agree.
And so, as always, I'm Big Sturg.
I'm Justice League.
And now I'm MyKala.
Well, hold on. You're in this now. We need a nickname.
We'll have to figure that out.
Kitty. So my like online handle name is like Mickey.
All right.
So I often go by like Mick or Mickey.
All right, I'm Big Sturg.
I'm Justice League.
And I'm Mickey.
And we are American Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Peace out. So we should be